welcome back to Crafty Meraki YouTube channel. My name is Aditi and I am going to be sharing two cards today showing you how you can use some products in a different way. I begin by using a 12-inch cardstock and trimming that down to 7 inches and rotating that 7-inch piece, and I will then trim it down to 5 inches. I will do this twice on the 7-inch cardstock, so that gives me two pieces 5 by 7 inch that are perfect for our card fronts. Saving all the scrap pieces, I will be using them later on. Now on the 7-inch side, I am scoring it at 3.5 inches. That way we have two note cards ready to go. Now I am going to be using the birthday star mini slimline die and the smallest rectangle here, but instead of cutting a slimline panel, I am actually going to cut on the card front to create a window. So placing it on the front of my card base, I've just opened up that card base that we created and I align the die on the front panel, making sure I cut 3/4 of that panel and I align both my card bases and die cut that. So here we now have 4 pieces. 2 are still the card base, so just burnishing again on the score line that we had, and these 2 pieces with that stitched border ready to create our window style card. I am going to use the larger scrap pieces and die cut a panel from the same slimline die, so that's a piece that we can set aside and use later. Now for some elements, I am going to use the Effortless Artistry Paper Collection, the Evergreen Elegance leaves, and I'm just picking certain papers with different colored leaves using the coordinated die to die cut all of these leaves. I literally just took 5 minutes to do this and instantly have elements ready to create any card. I like doing this and I save all of these in a little box so that I can use them for multiple projects. Now we need another piece to complete our card. We need a piece that's 3.5 inches by 5 inches that we can place as a backing for our card front, just to create that window that we are going to be doing. And I'm just trimming off an 1/8 here. You will do this depending on your card, just making sure that you place it and it closes together well. We are going to be doing a little ink blending. So for the first card, I am using mid yellow and Olove fresh inks from Altenew. Just blending the two inks together roughly in the middle of this card front piece that we've just cut out, giving me a nice ink blended background. Once I'm happy with the inks, I am just setting the inks aside and I will spray water to create a little ghosted splatter effect. So I spritz my water directly from the bottle and blot it with a paper napkin. I also like to just spritz water in my palm and then splatter that all around. That creates a little fine mist of water, and that ghosted effect really looks beautiful, especially on such ink blended backgrounds, giving us a nice texture, and we don't really need anything else for this. Repeating the same ink blended process but with orange cream and canyon clay for a little orange coral pink ink blended background for my second card here. So that's a look at that second ink blended background, and now we can put our card together. So I will be using double-sided adhesive to put all the pieces together. It's just less messy and makes sure everything is glued and stays intact. So I'm applying the double-sided adhesive on the smaller part on the inside of the card, because I first want to adhere this card front that we've ink blended. I will place the card front inside, just at the edge of that score line, and fold over that top smaller panel over this, so that glues our two pieces together and we have a full card front now instead of that tiny little white panel. I just trim out the excess with scissors and we have a nice card front going on there. Now we're going to trim a few pieces. So this piece that we had die cut earlier with the slimline die, we need two pieces for the top and the bottom, and I will just trim out from this single piece here. So keeping the stitched edge at the 1.5 inch mark, I am going to cut that. And what that does is it gives me a leftover piece which is almost 5/8 of an inch that will come handy for the bottom. So that is how I want to align that top stitch part, and that 5/8 inch piece is for support at the bottom. Now using that single panel that we had die cut with the slim line, I am going to cut a piece at almost 7/8 of an inch. You can cut it to 1 inch as well, and trim off the sides to get a 5-inch piece. So that way we have used our slimline die panel to die cut a nice frame that can be used at the bottom as well. And you see we have that stitched border going on the top and the bottom, creating a nice little window. So I'm just doing that for my other card as well, trimming the pieces and keeping them all ready. So first I will adhere the 5/8 inch piece at the bottom of the card. What this does is it makes sure that the top and the bottom have equal height and looks even on our card front. So you see we have a nice window effect there. Now before gluing the stitched pieces, I am going to bring back my leaves, picking colors that I think will look good for this ink blended background. And I am just assembling them in a way to create a floating effect, for it to look like some leaves are hanging from the top and some leaves are just going upwards from the bottom. And this creates a nice effect, almost as if the leaves are hanging on to something, and creates for a nice little focal on our card front. And that's what makes these cards clean and simple. There's not too much going, very little color, single elements, and a lot of white space. So when I'm happy with my arrangement, I will use liquid adhesive and glue these leaf clusters down in place. And later you will see me, I also pick out some leaves and trim them, just cutting them to get single leaves to fill the empty spaces so that my composition looks complete and full. Once I'm happy with the composition, I trim the overhangs, and I'm just bringing back my stitched pieces for the top and the bottom, and I will use a pencil to trace underneath so I can trim off any excess overhangs. I do this right away for the bottom piece because I need to stamp the sentiment on it as well. So if I have it to size, I will be able to place my sentiment exactly in position. I will be using double-sided tape to adhere these two pieces down on the card. So just packing these with double-sided tape, I will first go ahead and adhere the top piece on the card, and I'm making sure that the stitched lines are facing inwards, creating that little window which we ink blended and added the leaves on. Once that top piece is in place, I can use my scissors to cut any excess overhang, and I am now going to bring out the stamp set Be Your Own Kind of Cupcake because I think it has some perfect sentiments for these cards. I choose the sentiment, align it on the smaller piece, and I'm keeping these cards more of a single color, so I bring back the Olove ink and I use that to stamp my sentiment instead of black ink. I use a piece of washi to hold down that tiny little strip in place because I want a clean single stamped sentiment and I don't want my paper moving on my work surface. So this just holds it down in place, and in one shot I can then get a clean crisp stamped image of the sentiment. And that's it. I am now going to glue this piece down on the card at the bottom. I use a paper napkin to just blot off any excess ink so I don't end up smudging my sentiment. And with that done, this card is now complete. So here is a look at both the cards complete. I have used the same process on the second card. I embellished these cards with gemstones, just adding that bling to these cards at in between those leaves. And that's it. That completes these two cards. I really hope this inspires you to pick your old products and stretch them out and use them in different ways. Remember, your frame dies, be it slimline or regular, can always be used to create such windows and to design beautiful, clean, and simple cards. Until the next time, take care and bye bye.